Hello, my name is Duncan MacLean, moderator and chair of trustees for the Heart of England Baptist Association, and it's a real pleasure to be with you and share some encouragement at this time. I'm aware of just how difficult the circumstances may be for many of you. There's a sense in our society of fear and anxiety, it can't be denied, and if we're really honest with ourselves, those same fears and feelings can be within us. And we have to try and ensure that wherever possible, we don't become defined by fear and anxiety, but wherever possible by hope and love. When I think about fear, the words of a great philosopher often come to mind, Winnie the Pooh. Milne tells the story of Winnie and the Pooh and Piglet walking through a wood on a stormy night, and the wind's howling and the trees are creaking and swaying, and Piglet's so scared that he turns to Pooh and says, "I can't go on any longer. Suppose a tree falls down, Pooh, and we're underneath it." To which the wise philosopher Pooh replies, "Quite simply, suppose it doesn't." And Piglet was comforted. And when I think about the words comfort, I'm drawn to the prophet Isaiah and to chapter 40. Let me read the opening verses from that chapter. "Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem." God wanted his people to know that despite the pain and suffering they were going through, and would go through, he'd not abandoned them. In the midst of all the pain, he would comfort them. And I think we need to feel God's comfort, and perhaps those within our societies and communities as well in which we live. We're truly living in times now when the church has no walls, and we need to be those who in some way, in addition to our knowing God's comfort, can minister that comfort to relatives, friends and neighbours. Isaiah goes on to recall God's words in verse 11. He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms and carry them in his bosom and gently lead the mother sheep. Seems to me he's speaking of a form of hospitality. Hospitality to God, hospitality to ourselves, and hospitality to others. I'm sure we'd all agree that making room for God is our priority, but just right now, maybe we need to begin by being hospitable to ourselves. Because as we begin to understand how this crisis is uniquely affecting each one of us, we can and should be more honest in our times of contemplation with God. A great deal has already been written about the effects of spatial distancing and isolation. We may feel frightened and anxious, we may find it harder to concentrate and even be more prone to tears. But as we reflect on our responses honestly, it's good to know that however we feel, it's okay. Hospitality to ourselves involves a willingness to be gentle with ourselves and to accept ourselves and not expect more of our discipleship than we're able to give right now. It is at this point we can open ourselves up to the God who loves us, the God who understands our fear and our anxieties and our personal manifestations of these. God works best when we're honest. I believe he says it's okay to be fearful, but don't let that fear define you. Let my love and our relationship together be the defining of who you are. And when we begin to grasp this, we're better placed to reach out to our visible, or rather virtually visible, family, friends and neighbours. The open heart that offers acceptance, love and inclusion to another. However we choose to communicate in these days, it requires intentional effort. But as we make time and space, we find that in the desire to bless others, we will also find blessing as we share together. So in these days, may we be creatively hospitable to God, to ourselves and to our neighbours. And perhaps I can turn to the very final verses of Isaiah 40 for encouragement to know God's provision for each of us in the midst of these times. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He doesn't faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. Chapter 40 is one of my favourite chapters of the Bible because of its great message of comfort for God's people and assurance of God's help. It has a special message of hope for those who feel exhausted, discouraged or enduring hard times. Let me share one of the daily meditations in my Celtic daily prayer. Words written by William Broddick. We have to be candles burning between hope and despair, faith and doubt, life and death. All the opposites. That is the disquieting place where people must always find us. Bless you.